This course today is based on the work of Michael Bungay Stanier. He is the author of the best-selling book, The Coaching Habit, which he followed up with The Advice Trap. His most recent best-selling book is titled How to Work with Almost Anyone: 5 Questions for Building the Best Possible Relationships. So we'll dive into our objectives here today. We are first going to start by exploring that best possible relationship. Who's that relationship with? And why does that relationship matter? We're going to ask ourselves 5 questions, and these should give you guidance into not only yourself, but insight into your best possible relationship. We are then going to learn about keystone conversations. What are keystone conversations, and how the heck do you have one? Finally, we are going to wrap up everything today in a pretty little bow by examining how to keep your best possible working relationship alive. So I do have one acronym for you today. I'll be bouncing back and forth between BPR and best possible relationship. For purposes of today, I will be focusing on the working side of the best possible relationship, but of course, these lessons too can be applied outside of the workplace. So working relationships should be safe, vital, and repairable. But what does that mean? Well, imagine if you could keep good working relationships in good standing as long as possible, or if you could contain the dysfunction of messy relationships to make them less painful and more productive. Or even better, what if you could reset those good relationships when they wobble and get them back on track quickly? Let's break these down just a little further. We'll start with safe. Keeping a relationship safe is about removing the fear. The Harvard Business School refers to it as psychological safety, and I'm sure that is a term that many of us have at least heard of. But the Harvard Business School defines it as a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistake. Creating a safe place to express differing points of view is a vital part of building any successful relationship. Vital relationships amplify the good. They are both essential and enlivening. A vital working relationship means constructing a relationship with the right combination of support and challenge. It's a relationship where you each have the chance to do something that matters, take responsibility for your own choices, and both grow together as people. Repairable is about commitment. Repairable speaks to the reality that all relationships, whether they be working or non-working relationships, are fragile, and they will have moments where they get cracked or dented. Safe and vital are important, but without that resilience, it's not likely going to be a long-lasting relationship. A true BPR, a true best possible relationship, requires commitment and capacity on both sides to fix the damage and carry on when things get tough instead of jumping ship. So we've explored our best possible relationship. You know who that person is and why that relationship matters to you. Let's now turn to the 5 questions that we need to ask ourselves before embarking on a keystone conversation. What's your best? This first question makes you think about what you are putting out there and how it can be better. It's about taking a look at yourself and assessing how best to communicate with another person, keeping in mind your personal strengths and your personal weaknesses. We each bring so much to the table as individuals. It becomes increasingly important in a working relationship to be aware of your weaknesses just as much as your strengths. In building a strong BPR, a strong best possible relationship, both are important and need to be communicated. If you have some scrap paper lying around on your desk, please feel free to follow along with me. So just grab that scrap piece of paper if you want and draw 2 intersecting lines along the left side of the chart. Write "I'm fulfilled by." At the bottom, write "what I'm good at." Now, if you kind of have some good insight into yourself, this might be an easy task for you. You can also kind of think about it, work you and outside of work you, or you can mush them all together as just overall you. That is completely fine. It's a super customizable handout here for you. And it's really just all about diving into you, what fulfills you and what you're good at. So this is my version of the chart. I am fulfilled by my weekly horseback riding lessons, but I'm not very good at this particular style. I love getting out there, spending some time in nature and with the horses, and having fun riding around. I'm pretty good at multitasking, but sometimes it causes me to have anxiety and to lose focus entirely. So I'm good at it, but it's not really fulfilling for me. I'm pretty good at video and audio editing. That's where I would spend all of my time if I could. So that's my personal best. That's what I could bring to any table I go to. And I am absolutely terrible at putting together outfits, as I'm sorry many of you see in the office. So that's way down there in the I hate it and it drains my soul corner. If I could just show up in sweatpants and a hoodie, I'd be one happy clam. So take time after this course and run through this worksheet and see what you are fulfilled by. What are you good at? What's your personal best? This also can show you where your weaknesses may lie and where you can spend some time to improve upon if you need. The more that we understand about ourselves, the easier it can become to connect with other people. And just a quick reminder, it can be hard to say, I'm good at this. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to fill out this exercise for myself. So we're going to couch it in terms that are easier for our personal modesty to handle. Think about yourself from an outside perspective. If you're struggling on, well, I don't know what fulfills me, I don't know what I'm good at, ask yourself, what would your best friend say that you're good at? Or what would your boss say that you're good at? Or one of your strengths, or maybe even some of areas that you need to improve upon. So please keep this in mind when you're filling out this exercise. Kind of remove yourself from the equation and think about yourself from that outside perspective. It can be a lot easier to figure out what fulfills you, what you're good at, and maybe where some weaknesses are that you can either work on or not. Now that we know what fulfills us, what we're good at, what about our practices and preferences? If you had a user manual, what would it say? Would it say works best in the early morning, but gets a little groggy after lunch? How about prefers yellow Post-its over the colorful ones? Would only like to write in blue ink? Or how about gets irritable when stressed? These are the things that make you you. They're the things that may not always be obvious on the surface, but are key to understanding you and how you work. Without sharing these insights and knowledge in both directions, your BPR, that best possible working relationship, cannot grow and thrive. This question really invites you to look introspectively to explore how to use this information in that relationship. So along those lines, take a moment and think about, how do you handle stress? How do you respond in a stressful situation? And be honest with yourself. How do you react in a disagreement? Many of us just shut down and wall off. It's the most common response, just to say, oh, that's it, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to deal with it. Let's move on. And that's okay. But sharing this knowledge can help your BPR partner to better anticipate your reaction and then better manage their response. It also helps you to be more self-aware and potentially better to mitigate your reaction. Maybe you don't handle stress in the best possible way. Acknowledging how you handle that stress helps you to pause and want to think or talk about the situation in a rational manner rather than react emotionally. So we've kind of grown up being taught that there are two options in a high stress or confrontational situation. Now, the author of How to Work with Almost Anyone says that he believes there are 4 options, not just 2. So we have fight, flee, freeze, and fix. Knowing how you react, that's half the battle right there. You do have a choice. You can either accept like, hey, this is how I react and I'm cool with that. Or you can say, this is how I react and this is not okay for me. And if that's the case, change it up. Just be sure that your BPR, that best possible working relationship, is aware of how you react in advance of stressful times. This will lead to a greater understanding of each other and your work processes. And then if your BPR partner isn't sharing with you how they react, ask. It's pretty important to understand how people react in stressful times. We are going to answer these next two questions together because they are two sides of the same coin. I want everybody to take a moment here and think about a significant lesson that you learned from a past good working relationship. And think about something that you maybe learned from a bad past relationship. We've all had them. We've all had those good ones. We've all had those bad ones. So it is important, learning from our past, and then applying those lessons to your current best possible relationship. We can really learn from each other. We are social creatures. We learn best by not only experiencing things ourselves, but from learning from other people's experiences. So inevitably, there will be bumps in the road. I'm not all rainbows and sunshine over here. There will be bumps in the road of your best possible relationship. But how will you fix things when they go sideways? Here are a few easy tips that will help you get over that bump and back on track. First and foremost, you've got to name what's happening. Call out the elephant in the room. Speak up. Keep it as simple and non-confrontational as possible. Talk about how it's affecting you. Stay curious. I think it's one of the things we can all take from our childhood is asking the whys and the hows. So don't let anger or frustration block you from that. Be curious about another's experience. This next one is probably my favorite, is remembering the goal. This whole thing is about holding on to that best possible relationship, not about being right. So often we focus on being right that we forget that there's a relationship and a person on the line. We don't always have to be right. Sometimes the goal itself is that relationship. Seek understanding. Listen to hear and speak to be heard. Use facts and not opinions as much as you can. And de-escalate if you have to by using humor and lightness to return a conversation to a more productive and positive place. And rebuild by moving away from the me versus you and into the goal of keeping the relationship moving forward in a healthy way. That brings us to our next objective. Let's talk about those keystone conversations. First, what is a keystone conversation? I just kind of want to throw that question out there. A keystone conversation is a conversation that holds the relationship together, much like this wedge-shaped keystone that holds the center of an arch aloft. So keystone conversations are those intentional and planned conversations that don't occur on their own, or at least without a little bit of legwork. They give a BPR, that best possible working relationship, a jumping off point on which to build a solid relationship moving forward. So a keystone conversation first has to begin with an invitation. Be bold and make that move. Be the one to extend that invitation. It's important to bear in mind that keystone conversations are not a one-sided talking to. It's not telling your BPR, hey, this is how I like things, this is how it's going to be, and this is how it's going to go. It's about using emotional intelligence to have an honest and open conversation. You should also consider where this conversation is starting from. Is it a positive place or a negative one? Is your BPR partner a peer, a supervisor, an employee? Organizational hierarchy can factor into how comfortable someone is going to feel sitting down for one of these conversations. Once you sit down to talk, make it clear that this conversation is without judgment. It's just a safe place and a chance to get to know each other and your work habits a little bit better. As things get rolling and you're sharing information about one another, ask questions, then actively listen to the answers. When it's your turn to answer, give clear answers that remove any ambiguity. Use those 5 questions that we just went over to not only help yourself gain insight, but to help guide these keystone conversations. At the end of your discussion, be gracious and appreciative of the situation. Let your conversation partner know how much their time and vulnerability meant to you. So our 4th objective is learning how to keep that best possible working relationship alive. So relationships are like the ocean. They ebb and they flow. Your goal is to keep that relationship on the most even keel possible and to minimize disruptions. And we can do this through considerate efforts. And they're pretty simple ones too. I'm sure we all do these every single day without even thinking about them. So we can stay curious, ask questions, actively listen, and speak with clarity. Be vulnerable, honest, not only with yourself, but with your BPR partner. It's super important to have that trust. And if that trust isn't there, then maybe that's not your BPR. Show kindness. This is one of the most simplest things that we can do every day. Just a simple, hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? Can I help you with anything? Little things like that. You could be surprised, especially if someone is having a bad day, how far that can go. Adjusting whenever is needed. So not staying rigid, being kind of fluid and flexible. Repair things that are falling into disrepair before they break completely. It's a lot easier to fix something that's bending rather than completely snapped in half. And reset that relationship as often as needed in order to keep it fresh and healthy. We did it. I hope I was able to dust some knowledge that I'm sure you all already had. If you've missed any of our sessions, they are online at our website. That's all for me. Thank you guys again so much for your time. I had a blast. I hope you guys did too. Thank you.